the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 116, recorded Friday, November 8th, 2013. Rockstar Trolls.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host, and this is video episode number 2, episode 116, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if we can... Hey, there's some video there. I apologize. We're getting all kinds of crazy stuff here. With us this week, first up and foremost, his name is Chris Jaynes. He's the founder and CTO of Merssive Technologies. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Tim. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. That means he's really smart, the CTO part, that's the Chief Technology Officer. That man right there is Rich Fregosa. He is the reason I still do this 2 years later. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm in my fortified bunker, bringing you into the Fregosa Lair Batcave.
How many touch panels do you have?
Right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touch panels, 3 processors, and a 6-foot rack off to the right that you can't see.
Very nice, very impressive.
No partridge in a pear tree?
And no
and
partridge.
A partridge. Yes, this is the only area in the house that my wife lets me play mad scientist. So
at least you have a space. So
yes.
And last but not least, his name is George Tucker. He is the engineering coordinator for World Stage and the left half of my brain. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much.
This week we're going to talk about, honestly, Samsung again with all... Huh?
Again.
Well, here's the thing. They've got some really cool technology coming out, and actually a concept video that they showed at CES last year, they're saying will be out within 12 months, 14 months, give or take. They're saying 2015, which we're almost at the end of 2013. So we'll yak about Sony again because we didn't get enough trouble last week. But first, let's talk about Barco here. According to AV Network, avnetwork.com, Barco is leaping into the corporate AV market. On the heels of Barco's success with ClickShare wireless presentation system and the acquisition of Project Design, the Belgian display manufacturer has made its first step into the corporate AV market with 3 new series of projectors. George, we'll start with you on this one. Is this a good idea for Barco to get in, or is the pro AV projector market already saturated?
Well, I don't think it's so saturated in that Barco probably has witnessed people like AMX and Crestron and other companies putting out all these collaborative tools that connect to their devices, and they're sort of being edged out of a profit center. So this, I think, is a smart move so long as they're not recreating or having to redesign an entirely new line of projectors. They're probably just building off an old one and giving it a sleeker look. I think it's probably going to be a success for them. It may not be a smashing success, but I think they'll make money.
Richie, is this something where Barco has... First of all, it's not like it's their first jump into projectors, right? I mean, they've been doing projectors for a while. But is this a good move for them?
I kind of view Barco getting into it as kind of like Pontiac coming back.
It wouldn't be a bad thing. My Trans Am.
Yeah. Do they have stock that they could, like George was saying, do they have something they can basically rebrand so that they can leverage some of the existing technology with a minimum of investment at that point just to enter into a new market? Yeah, I figure it's worth it. Are they going to take it by storm? No, I think right now, given the established players in the market, that it's going to be a very tough uphill climb for them. Like I said, I don't think they're just going to completely take it over, but it's one of those things where, sometimes you have to admit if your time has passed, you got to move into new markets rather than trying to chase after, hunt. What is it? Stalking your ex-girlfriend on Facebook. That's what it feels like right now.
Very well done. I have a buddy who unfortunately hacked his ex-girlfriend. Never mind, I shouldn't say that because the NSA will probably listen to this. And Anyhow, I don't know anyone who's ever hacked a Facebook account. Chris, save me from this. As a manufacturer, you guys, first of all, this is not you guys have also here recently in the last year or so stepped into a new market, right? With the Solstice product. Walk me through that. How, as a manufacturer, how difficult is it, and how nerve-wracking is it to step into new waters?
Well, it's kind of ironic because we founded the company based on that middle market. We started building product because we realized, at the high end or the sort of ultra high end of the market, you've got Barco and Christie playing in these kind of corporate crown jewels, where you're willing to spend, $500,000 on video switching gear and big, beautiful, bright projectors. And then you've got the sort of very low end of the market, and there's that gap in between. And that's really what attracted us to build our first product. We've always had sights on this market. And then, about a year and a half ago, we had some customers come to us and say, we're willing to take your hand and take your technology and help you mold it into product form. So it's been good. When we started the whole company, we knew we would end up in this place. It just took us maybe a couple of years longer than you always think it's going to, of course. But we're there now. It's been really exciting. We're getting a lot of people pretty excited because you're either really hungry for, I've got that sad, lonely projector sitting on a conference room table and no ability to control it or share it, or you're way up at the high end and you've got, Crestron and video switching gear and projectors that are mounted and blended and look great. I think what we're able to do with Solstice is kind of fill that gap in between. So we're talking to folks in higher ed or the Fortune 500 companies that say, it's great, we've got, 100 visualization centers, but we need, tens of thousands of team rooms where we can collaborate in a seamless way.
Well, and the one thing actually that I ran into Solstice in Merssive about a month or so ago at a local roundabout trade show here in St. Louis, and it impressed me because this was not, let's be honest, it wasn't the first wireless video solution I've seen. But good Lord, dude, you guys handle an awful lot of video streams at the same time. That was one thing that impressed me out of the box. Not without divulging secrets. How do you guys do that?
Well, I can tell you a couple. Well, so, premise one when we built Solstice was don't assume that there's high-end hardware in place because that sort of defeats the purpose. If you're gonna be able to go widespread and have people sort of experience video streaming over Wi-Fi efficiently, you've got to crack some very difficult nuts. So what we ended up doing, I can give you some hints. We've got our own proprietary video encoding engine. It runs over traditional networks, TCP/IP routing, but we have our own layer for quality of service, and it takes into account sort of the very fundamental principles of collaboration. So rather than treat a video encoding stream as a point-to-point stream, we're able to sort of do a round robin that listens for everything that's happening, it keeps status on all the different video streams that are coming in, and then optimally encode those video parameters at the source so that we get the best sort of global user experience for all the different feeds. So if you share a live video that's 1080p, high bit rate, beautiful image, and I'm sharing a low resolution 1080p video, and it's not changing much, then our decoder actually is aware of both of those streams and can sort of make trade-offs in the decode time and segmentation in the right way. So yeah, it's good. You have to build that core layer correctly if you're going to get end users happy, And then the flip side of that coin is simplicity.
Well, yeah, the simplicity part is very important, especially when you're working with numbnuts like me. So, all right, from our friends over at CE Pro, the home automation energy efficiency top remodeling trends for next decade. Here's the thing that we've talked about on this show and others that we've been associated with about some of the consumer electronics and the home driving the Pro AV market here recently. And this is nothing new by any stretch of the imagination. Everything from BYOD, bring your own device, to simplistic home automation. Uncle Richie, since you're my resi brain on this, how on the money here is Jason and our friends over at CE Pro? Are we really on the cusp here of some serious home automation stuff?
Yeah, I think what's happening is that just go to Kickstarter. If you want to get an idea of
Absolutely.
How that is starting to take off at this point. What is starting to happen is we're seeing that the digital tide is starting to shift, and it's slowly being taken away from proprietary solutions the big four, Crestron, AMX, Control 4 Savant, and the associated prices with it. And they are starting to find ways to bring it more to the do-it-yourselfer, the hobbyist, the middle income, the new millennials that are coming in who are already tech savvy to begin with. And they're taking a look at it and saying, well, gee, if I can go ahead and I can go down to Home Depot and buy a Philips Hue light and turn this on and off and change the colors off of my little app, and I've got a Lockatron lock, or I've got a Yale lock, or I've got a Nest thermostat or a Nest smoke detector. Currently, right now, they're operating in different apps, or maybe they're really what you wind up dealing with is what they're talking about is all of the individual segments of automation are becoming more affordable, and we're seeing an explosion there. Now, in terms of an overlay control system, we're starting back again kind of where we started in the 90s when Crestron and AMX came out, which was we have all these disparate systems. How are we going to bridge them all together and provide a unified interface? So it's kind of the Wild West right now with the Android devices and the iOS devices, which is you have an app for all of these devices. And some of them have open protocols and some of them don't. So the people who have open protocols, people are developing little widgets and they're trying to figure it out as they go along. And since they're already leveraging existing affordable technology, they're able to come in at price points with a little bit of sweat equity, as opposed to investing 4, 5, 6 figures in a system prior. So, again, it's an easy sell because the devices that interact with this are already in place. That people are already carrying a smartphone, they're already carrying a tablet. So you already have a captive audience. Now what's happening is they're trying to find a way to get the product into their hands affordably. Either with either with a free app or a freemium app or an in-app purchase. I see that's where the models are going to start happening with people. Is they're going to say, okay, you can buy this $299 light bulb. Here's the basic controls, and here are the lists in the App Store of what you can buy from somebody else. And all of a sudden, people start clicking through that way.
Chris, go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
So no, in terms of the automation standpoint, that's where I see. And what's driving it is people are going, wow, I can save energy, I can save money, I can, I can perform load sharing and time of day differences based on stuff that's completely happening in the background. All I got to do is whip out my smartphone and actuate it. I think that again, all of this is predicated because of mobile. That is where it's coming from, is from mobile. And we're going to see this across these trends growing pretty much across the consumer electronics industry across the board, is that the mobile devices are going to be what's going to drive this next wave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chris, talk about from not only just from a manufacturer standpoint, but also from a technologist standpoint. Is it the manufacturers driving this and saying, hey, there's some really cool things that we can do? Or is it the other side of it where you've got this generation of young people who are now graduating college and purchasing their first homes or moving into their first apartments, and they're saying, you know what, I grew up with stuff like this. This is what I want. Right. This is what I expect.
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter. I think Richard's probably right. You have a lot of grassroots movement at the low end, but at the same time, there are bigger players coming into the space right now. I mean, Apple has been filing some intellectual property in this space now, saying that they want to get into this home automation control game. So I think they also see the opportunity. I think one of the things I'm going to find interesting over the next 2 to 3 years is will that trend put pressure back onto the enterprise class control systems? Will it transform the way people think about it in the workplace and in other spaces? Because, one thing I've noticed over the last 8-9 years is that the displays in the home have created an interesting dilemma for people in the business space. So I meet with these guys in IT or AV at a Fortune 50 company, and they'll say, yeah, we have this problem because what ends up happening is our executives and our developers, they'll go home and they've got a 65-inch flat panel, a smart TV that's beautiful on the wall, and then they come here and there's a projector we bought 5 years ago bolted to the ceiling, and it's just not as good. So I wonder if we start to see these kind of like this grassroots control system emerge from these communities and ecosystems that are really, really sort of aggressive and on software life cycles and things like that based on proprietary or non-proprietary open platforms. What happens now to, like a Crestron, digital media, very expensive high-end switching system in the enterprise, it starts to have to take on some of those characteristics. They'll at least have to pay attention to it, I think.
Okay, so Chris makes an interesting point here. You have executives who, they make X amount of dollars, and they're going to replace their home system every so often. How do you keep up with that? How do you keep up with the technologist who's also your CEO that says, you know what, I want the latest, greatest thing. I want a 4K, 80-inch flat screen. And Chris is right. Once he starts coming into the office after a couple of weeks, he's going to want that 4K, or 8K, or good Lord, 8K 3D display.
Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack, isn't it? There's the argument of durability and usage versus what this new device can do and its interoperability with everything else. I mean, that cycle's getting shorter and shorter as we go along. It used to be, okay, the consumer goods could possibly catch up in about 5 or 6 years after you release a product. You're talking less than a year these days. I think there's an argument still to be made for durable goods to be made, like by the Crustrons and the AMXs and all that kind of stuff. But it's getting shorter and shorter. Just look at CE Pro just did a review of the Viper security system that does a little bit of automation. And while it said that not ready for prime time, I've basically labeled this a stealth positive review. It said that there was a lot of negatives. It wasn't ready for this, but it was basically a calling out saying, they're coming, gentlemen. It's no longer just a woulda, coulda, shoulda, maybe. Here they come. They're here.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know how you make that argument every day, say even for you from education perspective. More and more they're like, well, why can't we just buy it off the shelf at Best Buy? Or why can't we just go to the local box store, get it off of Amazon? Long ago, the high-end projection system sales suffered terribly once Amazon could sell even the lowest level of Barco.
Yeah. Well, and to your point specifically, talking about education, okay, here's the dirty little secret for educators, or that from an educator or a technology manager for education, we get awful deals that you guys don't see. I mean, it's horrible. It's not horrible, but it's a really good deal for us, and that's why. And that's how when I go to our chief technology officer, who is the person who controls the budget for us. And he asks the same question, why don't you go to Best Buy? Why don't you go to Amazon? And I'll show him the sheet. Look, dude, you realize how much I'm paying for these suckers, Now, that's not to say that they're cheap projectors, but the projector manufacturers have at least acknowledged the fact that education is one of those areas that, these folks buy 40, 50, 100 projectors a year. We're going to have to do something to keep them happy. And once an education facility gets acclimated and used to one type of projector and how they operate and the pinouts on the 9-pin and the controlling aspects of it, it's really hard to bust in. I'll just be honest with you, not just from our standpoint, but some of our guys that's on our education podcast, Matt Silverman is one, and Chris Tyner and is another, that they've almost completely standardized on one brand of projector manufacturer, and that's simply because the prices are so darn good. And when you look at changing the code and every single year, that's that's half an hour's worth of coding time that you don't have to worry about because you've got it, because it's the same guys. So
yeah, that's because the coding guy's still working, on his laptop with Windows 95 on it. So
hey, I have upgraded to XP. Thank you very much.
Microsoft Bob runs this facility.
Wow, you pulled out Bob. Holy cow, dude. Nice. What was the one with the house? The one with the safety? Was that is that Bob?
That's Bob.
That was Bob? Okay, yeah.
Bob.
Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, that was, I remember this. I think it was one of the last times at CES, they, Microsoft talked about introducing something. But, again, the other thing to consider is, going back to mobile, and Christopher was talking about before, is, Apple's making some moves, but, Google is as well with Android. There's going to be a point in time, when Siri first came out, there was a mad rush by the established players to try to make it work with automation systems. We had limited success with it because, again, we're having to hack into somebody's ecosystem and kind of decipher it. My feeling is that within the next 18 months, it is going to be very likely that you're going to get, okay, Google, turn off my lights. okay, Google,
Oh, yeah.
unlock my door with either the NFC or like Apple's doing basically a version of geocaching, which is saying what they're probably going to wind up doing is you will determine based on your Apple ID, where home is. And since it's already doing the location services, it's going to say the minute that you're within the boundaries of home, and it's tied to your Apple ID, because again, that's the keys to the kingdom that Apple contains.
Yeah.
That has everything about you. When they can tie your physical proximity from the device that's already in your pocket to a secure ecosystem that they already contain, all of a sudden you pull up your Apple remote app, and and it already shows, it'll auto-populate any Apple connected device that's on the network. All of a sudden, your television shows up, that's branded with the Apple TV or the light switch or anything else that they've done through the App Store. And immediately you've created within their ecosystem. The problem, though, again, is that it's happening with these two large conglomerates who are saying, yeah, we're going to sell 45 million of them next quarter. And that is in no way where the established players that we were talking about before are going to be able to compete. And they're going to have to evolve, and work on what we've been talking about from the beginning is focusing more on infrastructure on the backbone. Is that, you may have all these devices, but how do you share them? How do you get them on these displays? How do you still make them all work together along some point? But again, that was the first thing when I read the same article about what Apple's looking at doing. I really think that this version of geocaching, or geofencing, geofencing based upon the device that you've got in your pocket, if they can find a way to make it secure, is going to absolutely waylay some companies in ways that they weren't expecting.
That's a very nice nice segue, because I'm getting ready to talk about another waylay. Rockstar, and this is not the the game manufacturer,
nor the drink.
Actually, I think that's what the drink is named after, is the video game manufacturer.
Oh, I'm not sure, actually.
I wouldn't be surprised. But these are the guys, Rockstar, the game manufacturers who makes the Grand Theft Auto series. This is not them. This is Rockstar, the patent troll, according to NoJitter.com. And what they are is Rockstar actually is made up of Microsoft, Apple, RIM, I'm not quite sure why they're in there, Ericsson, and Sony, to buy the Nortel patent portfolio in 2011. And what folks have been worried about for up until this point, because this is what they've been worried about, is the fact that they're going to start suing everybody, because according to Rockstar's CEO John Vesci, pretty much anyone out there is infringing on the unified communications front. So, Chris, we'll start with you on this one. Okay, so yes, patents are important, and yes, we want to make sure that the patent holders are properly paid for and reimbursed for their work. That is not these people, So, how do you? I'm not going to say how do you get around this. How do you handle patent holders when you're trying to develop and move technology forward and develop really cool products?
Well, I have a unique perspective because, we're a startup, so it's a bit different game for startups that are the small guys on the block that have to worry about the big guys. So, I'm responsible for IP here at Merssive, and our strategy is sort of twofold. One is defensive patent portfolio, so not offensive, clearly, because if you're a startup, you're not out there trying to sue other companies. That's a quick way to lose all your investors and go out of business overnight. So we're not about to do that. But at the same time, if you look at the core of what a patent is, it's supposed to be a social contract between a company and society that says, if we invest R&D money, if we do something highly risky on our own dime, we want to have society agree that that's valuable and then give us some runway to execute on it, right? So have some time to get into the market so that you don't get undercut and you spend, like we did. I brought in, part of it was taxpayer dollars because I was a professor and we had, $6-7 million in grant money coming into my labs to solve some of these video streaming problems and things that we do with projector blending. When you bring that out into the real world, if the first thing that happened is somebody swoops in and says, oh, that's cool, we'll just take that and we'll manufacture it over in China and launch a company, you lose the investment.
Mm-hmm.
So the strategy for us is really build a patent portfolio that allows us to protect our investments from our investors and our time and our energy and our ideas to get them to market. Now, what that tends to mean for companies like us is we don't patent specific features on products, for example. I think that the way companies like us win is we build technology that's the best thing in the world that could be built, and we wrap it as cleanly as we can with great products, and we take it to market, and then that's how you win. You don't necessarily win because you have blocking patents on things like I've got a better button and it's in a better location or something. We have 14 patents.
Or unlocking how to unlock a screen or something.
Right, exactly. So, at the end of the day, larger companies treat patents differently, and they associate value with them for other reasons. But so when I see stuff like the Nortel news, I sort of cringe and think, are we playing that same game, or are we still paying back society for the social contract that sort of we engaged in when we launched the company and started to spend 4 a.m. all night code-a-thons and so we have 14 patents now that really surround how we do blending with cameras for multi-projector arrays, how we transport video, and some of the concepts behind multi-user collaboration around treating the display like a shared piece of infrastructure. Seems obvious when you think about it. It's like, well, wait a minute, our printers are shared, and I can attach to them over network, and I can get Wi-Fi when I go to Starbucks. When I'm sitting at an airport and there's a big flat panel, why is that also not part of my shared infrastructure? Okay, easy idea. Technology to unlock that infrastructure is what you should be patenting. So I get frustrated when I see patents that are sitting at the conceptual level. Things like, okay, you should have a mouse because that's the best interface for a desktop paradigm or whatever. The trick is patenting the stuff that really makes it work, where the sweat equity went into. I think. So those Nortel, consortium and patent consortiums, we tend to do things like, if there's an opportunity to cross-license patents, like with projection design, we've done that before. I sit on the Visa board for a new open standard for multi-projector blending, for example, and I'm a big fan of that's how you get around patents. You hurry early on in the game, get buy-in from Christie and Barco, and they also dial into every one of those meetings and are contributing, so that we don't all go in our separate directions and immediately start patenting and starting the war early. Instead, build a community, build a standard, and then let everybody, everyone's going to have a different product and a different interpretation of the market anyway at the end of the day.
But you're all going to start with that same foundation, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
George, he mentioned a couple things that you love. First of all, standards. So, in all seriousness,
the thing about standards.
Yeah,
there's always a new one.
Well, there's
always one to choose.
There's so many to choose from. There's a cartoon running around that says, we should all get together and get rid of all these standards. And what happens is, 6 months later, we don't have one standard, we have another, standard. So, Chris makes a good point, though. I mean, it is a social contract. It is, where these folks, people like Merssive, have poured in, not just actual equity, but blood equity and sweat equity and late night coffee and pizza equity. Is there a reason that we should be first of all, should we be concerned about this patent, these patents and Rockstar themselves specifically? And is there something we can do maybe as a society to say, well, you know what, let's kind of rearrange or take a better look at how patents are handled?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there is a reason to be concerned, if not frightened. In my reading of this is that this was a group effort to defeat Google.
Oh, for crying out loud! Seriously?
Well, read the article.
Yeah.
In the Nortel bankruptcy action, Rockstar bid $4.5 billion to win out versus Google. No one else.
No.
That is, I think, is the essence of what's going on here. These companies trying to push them out of their market. And that's the fear I have, is that we suddenly have the new beast, a corporate patent troll. Not a company made by some individuals looking to make money, but companies looking to push competitors out of their industry. And that is a problem. This could be just like monopolies, just like the old in the old Politico cartoons of the 1800s with the big railroad guys trying to take over everything. This is a problem. And yes, it is a social contract, and Chris has it right, and there are certain protections you need, just like we want to keep the licensing of a song to the original author for a certain period of time. but you can't lock up a technology. You can't block out a competitor just because you want to. That's a consortium. It's a cabal. And that's my only concern with it.
Well, apparently it's a legal cabal because they did it. I mean, and I shouldn't say legal because, it took the DOJ a number of years to come after Microsoft in the late 90s.
Or Ma Bell, or any of those guys.
Yeah, speaking of AT&T, isn't it about time for them to go after them again and break them up once yet again?
Probably. The Standard Oil standard.
Yeah, in case you don't know what that's about. Ma Bell or Ma Bell turned into AT&T, was AT&T, and they broke them up in the, late 70s, up into all these different regionals, and suddenly all the different regionals have started buying themselves up again, and suddenly now we have AT&T.
Yeah.
It happens. Uncle Richie, how concerned are you about these patents, the patent Rockstar themselves, and then the effect they may or may not have on technology and us as unified communicators?
Well, I think where it's going to affect us in terms of the trickle down is in terms of pricing. To defend yourself against a patent troll, you have to get your own attorneys. You have to pay those attorneys. When you're paying those attorneys, obviously, you got to get the money from somewhere, So, do you take it out of profit or do you increase costs? So I think what happens is that ultimately the end user, whoever that end user is, will wind up footing the bill. So does it directly relate, the customer or the integrator? It doesn't directly relate them, directly affect them. But what we will see is that there will be price increases, say if somebody loses, or if the vendor that does lose goes out of business, well, guess what? We have less choices available to us. So it's more of a global view of, how are you going to lose? We all lose from it. We just lose it, kind of from the death of 1,000 cuts. Is that the way that I see it?
And that's probably there's probably some truth to that, where they start getting you little by little. You are listening to AVWeek, and if you're watching the live stream, thank you so much for doing so, or watching this on YouTube. Chris Jaynes is here. He's the CTO and founder of Merssive, which means he's had a couple of sleepless nights and plenty of coffee. It also means he's smarter than me, which doesn't take much because so is the other two. George Tucker's also here from World Stage, and he's the left half of my AVNation brain. And Uncle Rich Fregosa from FregosaDesign.com. Let's chat about Sony for a second here, if we can, please. Specifically talking about the PlayStation 4 and the fact that Sony's done something that is very un-Sony, and by that I mean that they have listened to the people that are probably going to buy this thing, and I say probably in this thing because it's the next generation of their console, and they're saying that basically it will not support DLNA media sharing. The recent revelation that PlayStation 4 will not support media sharing appears to be under review by Sony, judging by tweets from Sony execs and an update to the recently released FAQ. Apparently, they're rethinking this whole thing. First question to you, George: is Sony finally getting this? 10 or 20 years after they kind of stumbled out between the Walkman into MP3, are they finally listening to people, and is it a good thing?
I think yes, they are finally listening, but it sounds almost like they're second guessing themselves, which I think is almost the worst scenario. Yes, good for them. They're listening. They want to respond to their clients, but why they're doing it just confuses me. DLNA has a lot of positives, and it's a good system for Sony to use if they want to share some of the streaming marketplace, some of the distributed media kind of stuff, and yet they're trying to cut themselves off. Is that because they didn't want to damage other product lines, or they just didn't understand what they had? Sony has been confusing us for nigh on about 5 or 6 years here, maybe longer, but at least in the AV marketplace. I don't know what they're doing. And why they would cut it off at the beginning just doesn't make sense to me. They're making themselves into silos, and that doesn't really do well for what is the emerging way to do business, which is ecosystems, is to get that entire chain if you can.
Well, and to be specific, I don't think they're making themselves into silos. I think they've made themselves into silos.
Okay, yeah, I will take that.
And I don't mean to pick at words here, but they are many different silos. Everything from the movie division to the music division to the technology, the device division, and even within device division, you've got broadcasting, you've got consumer electronics. I mean, all these people. This is the definition of the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Well, and they had the right plan 10, 15 years ago when they were buying content producers, the video companies, so that they wouldn't lose the format war again, and then they muffed up their format production. I mean, it's just, how do you do that?
Well, and they won the wrong format war. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. We won the war. Nobody came.
Yeah. Richie, is this is Sony getting a little late to this party, or do they have a chance here?
Well, the DLNA was kind of the afterthought for the whole conversation. What caused kind of the uproar and people ready to throw them on their own petard is the fact that you have a unit that's still a disc-based system that won't play a music disc.
Oh, nobody wants to do that.
An MP3, and everybody kind of went, "What?" And the DLNA became a part of the media sharing when they said, "Oh yeah, you can share your media as long as it's not an MP3 or a CD." Everybody kind of went, "Guys, you may want to rethink this strategy," because Sony was really adamant about pushing their what is it called? Their unlimited music service. They've got some cloud-based service, so that was going to be their push. That was how they were going to volley to everything. Oh, you don't need MP3s, just buy it from us. And again, they looked at the market and the power of social media caused this, which was the thing that was amazing to me. Was all of this, kind of following it. It was amazing that social media was able to create this backlash that caused Sony executives to go, "Ooh, maybe we ought to take a look at this." Yeah. It's one of the first times I've seen it like that with a consumer electronics company. So that's the part that fascinated me. I think that they're backtracking because of that fact, because there are now outlets for the consumers and their users to vocally demonstrate what they will not put up with. And it is going to cause I think this is going to be the first of many. It'll be interesting to see what Microsoft may have to cave in once the Xbox One comes out. Because I think there's going to be some vocal minorities who might be able to push change through in these ways.
You mean like being able to play different discs on different devices or on different boxes? Jeez. Sorry, that's one thing right now that if you're an Xbox person, and I am, I don't have the other one pre-ordered yet. I typically wait for a year or two, but you can't if you purchase a game disc and you put it in your device in your single Xbox One. Good luck taking it out and taking it to your friend's house and playing it, because that's not going to happen. Chris, a couple things here, and you from two different places. First, as a manufacturer, and also as a technologist. How important is the customer, and I don't mean that in a silly way, but how important is their voice, and at what point do you need to start listening if they start pushing back or start asking for specific features?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell whether it has something to do with company size or company culture, but I just got off the phone today, for example, with 3 different customers. So I spend almost all my time talking to end users. So they have the product, they'll take Solstice and use it for a while, they'll put it in a lab, they'll install it in a student center, or then watch how students use it. I'm desperate for data, so I'm always on the phone with customers saying, what do we do next, How do we improve the product? And then I take that data in. And I think part of it is when you get to be such a large company like a Sony, you have market, it takes millions of dollars to build your MRD, and then you execute on the MRD for the next 5 years. And if you are wrong, it's a very hard thing to undo that. At a company my size, it's me. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we quickly change. And so I'm always talking to end customers. It's funny because in the broad context, I used to look at Sony probably 5-6 years ago as well. They might have figured this out, because when we were building Solstice, sort of when we were still in the Black Ops phase and no one knew about it, it was built on this sort of epiphany I had that, geez, if you look at wireless transmission rates and compression technology, and you overlay those two technologies together, and you say, at what point in time will we be able to transport HD video at 60 hertz? Of course, there's a crossover point over that Wi-Fi transmission signal, and then the cable disappears. So, I thought at the time when DLNA was being pushed heavily in the market that maybe Sony knew something as well, and they were going to say, let's preempt the market. Let's build an ecosystem for the time when, mobile devices are communicating their music to devices in your home, and you're streaming live video, et cetera, et cetera. And then I saw this announcement. I thought, man, they have it so wrong. Right as it's heating up, they're pulling the plug on their own DLNA platform that sits in the living room of everybody's house. How crazy is that?
No,
if you look at Chromecast is now out. You've got all these big players that are saying, wait a minute, even NVIDIA announced we're going to build gaming centers because pixel streaming over the network's the future, and you'll just stream games as a service. And then you see Sony saying, DLNA was cool in its time, but I don't know if it should make it on a gaming platform. Oh my God, what are you thinking? Well, it's amazing.
You're right, because there are a number of different people who have said the exact same thing, where gaming, your device, your console will eventually not be this giant monster thing. It'll be basically a streaming server.
It's just a receiver. Yep.
Yeah. That would be a neat day to get to. So maybe my
it's
son.
Close.
Yeah.
That's really close, Tim. I mean, NVIDIA's going to be building these giant gaming centers with just co-located GPUs, and then they'll just blast the pixels at your home when you subscribe to the service. Wow. You don't need a GPU even on your TV at home to pull that off.
No, but you need won't you need like a pretty fast connection? I mean, are we talking fiber here?
You will, but there's big pipes now, and if you plot that, again, you go back and plot how much bandwidth can I get into a house over time. You've got to be there when that happens, when you're able to get enough. There's games you can play. We do the same thing in Solstice. We have these preemptive encoders where we'll look at what's the important data of a stream, and of course, send that first, make it arrive on time, and you can play perceptual tricks too about what's getting updated when and who's looking where and things like that too.
Well, all right.
They had it right in in that scene in Back to the Future. In Back to the Future 2, right? When he comes in, it's like play this in the Weather Channel.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's just gonna be pixel mapped straight into a multi-format display.
Right. Exactly.
That would be one of the only things bright about Back to the Future 2, because I still don't have my hoverboard. And we're what, a year and a half, 2 years away from the 2015 date. So,
yep.
Tick tick tick. All right, from Gizmodo. If you didn't see this, and I'm gonna see if I can't try to do this, because again, we're still figuring out this whole YouTube thing here. But this is a video that was put out by.
You're muted.
I'm muted?
You muted yourself.
Why did I mute?
NASCAR's about excitement. We're tracking all the action, hearing everything from our marketing partners.
Skip ad.
He was talking on Facebook. He just didn't want us to see.
So this is an ad.
Hey, dog. What up?
This is a concept commercial put out by Samsung. And the reason we're playing
I hate this commercial.
I love this commercial. But here's the reason why. And we'll play it, and we'll kind of comment on it as it. First of all, there's the atypical hipster with the entirely too big for his own good tablet that, for some reason, has flashing LEDs.
Hey, what's up with you and Carla?
Buddy. Has she left you yet? Oh, she did. Hello?
Tapping on the Bluetooth headset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at my tablet.
Hey, Tim, we're not seeing any of it, buddy.
You're not seeing anything? Who do you see?
No.
We see you
Oh,
muted.
I'm sorry, you see me. Then never mind.
I think when you go to play the media, it mutes you.
Well, I know that, but for some reason you should see it, though.
I don't know.
All right.
Suffice to say, it's a stupid ad.
Well,
imagine if we're actually going to reenact it.
now do you see it?
Yeah.
Now do you see it?
No.
Okay, screw it then. There we go.
Yeah, we have to learn that trick.
Well, we will. Anyhow, so the ad culminates in two concept products by Samsung. One is it's a smaller than an iPad Mini display tablet looking thing, slightly smaller than I guess what would be a Note, a Samsung Note. And the guy is talking to the attractive woman, and she's hitting on him, and he's hitting on her, and vice versa. And he's like, "Oh, I gotta go," and he takes his little tablet and he folds it in half. Now, me being, Mr. OLED over here, I'm like, holy cow, that is the coolest thing in the world. And then, of course, the very next concept display that come out, the guy's holding what looks to be like a pen, and he hits the button, and it just comes out like that. That's even cooler. The reason for the first one, though, we're mentioning is the Gizmodo story, the fact that this is, Samsung is saying by 2015, they're going to have this, and I'm all about it. Now, with as much as we talk about the unified communication and mobile and stuff like this, George, OLED, as much as we keep, they keep promising it to us, are we there? I mean, they're saying by 2015, so should we expect displays and stuff like that, or is it just simply for smaller form factors like cell phones and small tablets?
I think because they're showing it in that size, that's our first hit. I don't know how much it is, and that's my question. Are we there yet? Is depending on who you're selling to, right? Is it going to be triple the price, quadruple the price of a standard touch phone, or will it be the same price? If it's the same price, hell yeah, it's going to be an incredible revolution. But if it's really that expensive for the first 4 or 5 years, I think we'll slowly see it come out, and then by the time you and I get it, it'll be the bigger format, the phablet format, the tablet format. I'm just excited as you. I've been OLED all over the place, and I told you at the year-end review in 2013.
You did.
It's going to be OLED, and damn, I'm going to be right.
Somebody owes me a steak dinner. It said 2015, not this year, so you were off by
the announcements this year, is it not?
Okay, yes, the announcements this year.
First to announce.
Yeah,
That's
first
it.
to announce.
Hey, look, if they get a product out that they can show at one of the trade shows by March of 2014, it counts as 2013.
Richie saw it at CES 3 years ago. What are you talking about? If that's the standard,
could
then
you
good
touch
luck.
it there, Richie?
It was behind glass. Actually,
It was behind two large men.
Transparent. The new. I was trying to figure out. It's like they're going to come out with like this invisible OLED one, where they're just littered all over the ground. You just can't find them anymore once they power off.
Crunch.
Actually, I'm waiting for the Emperor Has No Clothes version, where it's just two guys standing in front of an empty case saying, "If you can't see it, then you can't buy it." So,
Fregosa Design announces retinal implants ready now, but only I can wear them.
Yes. Rich, where are we at with this, with OLEDs? In all seriousness, where are we going with it? I mean, George is right. Where the reason they're probably showing this now is because the smaller form factor is ready, and the bigger ones are still not quite ready for prime time.
It goes back to mobile. I feel like I'm just going to keep over the next 2 years, 3 years, as it relates to our industry. That's what I'm going to keep going back to. Everything's going to hinge on mobile. Mobile is what's going to be what drives each and every one of the technology advances that we're going to be seeing over the next 36 months. They're going to drive OLED because, again, if they can sell, what was it? Even just look at what Apple did, with the release of the 5S, not the 5C, which kind of tanked, but the 5S, the sales that they had, and with each new, I don't know, how many different models now does Samsung have of phones? Like 92 or something? I mean, just some ridiculous number of phones. But if you consider, and they can keep it at an affordable price point, it is the difference with, say it's an $800 phone, and then, you go ahead and get, the subsidies from the manufacturers, it's still not a $10,000 65-inch display.
No.
So you're dealing with, magnitudes of order in terms of the price. Yeah, it's a really expensive phone, but in terms of the investment, it's still approachable. Trying to deal with it with the large form factors, you're placing it out of 98, it becomes a 1% product. So I think that you are going to see all of the energy focused on that. And then when they get it to the point where the manufacturing costs come down, they go, oh, yeah, we can do a 65 with this now. It doesn't really matter how big we make it now. We've got the circuit board set up for it. Then they can roll it out. But I think the days of waiting for the large format screen to drive the market is over. It's going to be the small format screen that drives the other sizes of displays. We're seeing it. It's flipped already because they can sell millions upon millions of these things.
Well, and I don't think it's just the manufacturers. Think about this for a second. Those of us who have kids that are, let's say younger than 18, that generation has grown up with this smaller form factor. Yes, the four of us who are in our 30s or 40s or somewhere in there, and we grew up either with a console TV like I did, an old Zenith, right, that it was a piece of furniture. And, where you've got, you want a bigger TV. My kids couldn't care less. My kids couldn't care less how big the TV is in the living room. They're going to get on their tablet or on, some sort of other mobile device where that's their preferred consumption device. Chris, let's talk about OLED for a second, but also a little bit about that. When it comes to OLED and that technology, where are we going? I mean, is it really, just like George and Rich both said, are we living in just a a mobile world where this is what it's going to depend on is how well mobile does?
Well, I mean, I guess first from a market perspective, the small form factor mobile displays, Rich is right. That's where the sweet spot for the manufacturers is going to be, because there's a diminishing return and sort of a loss of margin as you get beyond 55-inch in the manufacturing process right now. So you almost fall off a cliff. It becomes so expensive to build these OLED panels. I guess if you're willing to, have a delivery service or some other revenue stream and build those, you can do it. But why would you do it when you can build tens of millions of phones and make people happy right away? And if you look at what the two drivers of the phone are, really, it's sort of like, how can I get something that fits in my pocket that's small, but at the same time gives me a pleasurable big viewing experience? I mean, I actually met someone yesterday that said, I'm going to get rid of my iPhone because the screen's just not quite big enough. That was the only reason. So, you hear that and you think, man, these flexible OLEDs are going to solve that problem. They're going to kill it as soon as it happens. The sort of technological challenge they still have, though, and this is the dirty secret with OLED, is that the blue emitters don't have a great lifetime. I mean, the other emitters are okay, and there's chemical reasons for that. But
don't say that.
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate. They'll figure it out. It just takes time. But you buy one of those phones and a year and a half in, it starts to fade on the blue, and it looks like you've lost the color channel. That's really problematic. So for me, I'm going to kind of hold my breath and see if they get that right as these prototypes start coming out. I think there's a reason that they still sit behind glass at the trade show booths.
Well,
with NTSC standards, blue only takes up 10% of your image.
That's true.
Yeah, it's a shame though that we're not on NTSC anymore. ATSC. Dang it.
That's funny.
I'm a hipster. I remember. I'm bringing it back.
You're a hipster.
Yeah. We can use less green.
I remember color bars when they didn't have magenta. What's your point?
That's funny.
Oh, goodness.
My big screen TV, we had to fold it out so the mirror would reflect.
And it had 3 guns. And
you had to get up to change the channel.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. What do you mean? I was the channel changer. I was my dad's remote. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We had to flip that channel 3 switch to play our video games.
Oh my god.
Oh, do you remember that? The little thingy with
I do.
Yeah.
And welcome to the old timers.
Speak for yourself. You're the one with a white beard, dude.
Genetics. On this episode, we talk walkies.
Goodness gracious. All right, let's.
Lake Wobegon, AVWeek, the Lake Wobegon edition.
I lost George, so we'll hopefully he'll come back before we wrap
he
up
got
here.
too old.
Yeah. Well, they have a time limit at the old folks' home. You can only be on Google Hangouts for 60 minutes, and after that, they make you eat your tapioca pudding. And take a nap.
Rice pudding, dang it.
Rice pudding. Yeah, rice, tapioca, same difference. All right, as George gets hooked up here, we'll say goodbye. Uncle Richie, Rich Fregosa, thanks so much, sir.
Thank you very much. It was always good to be able to share in my no pants edition of AVWeek.
Thank you. How can people find you, get a hold of you, hire you to control their waterfalls and read your ramblings?
You can, for your digital concierge needs, I don't have any product placement.
Oh, you should. You got the TSW right behind you.
Yeah, exactly. You can find me on my website, fregosadesign.com, but the better place to find me, obviously, through the social media channels, available on Facebook, Twitter, @rfregosa, also on Google Plus and LinkedIn, et cetera, or just or cepro.com. Those are all of the venues that I'm around, and happy to just hang.
And you'll be covering CES for the fine folks at CE Pro?
I will be covering this will be my 3rd or 4th year covering for CE Pro.
I was going to say, I've known you for the last couple, so yeah, you've been there for a while. So very cool. Thank you, sir. Also with us is Chris Jaynes. Chris is the founder and CTO of Merssive Technology. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. It was really fun.
Really quickly, explain to people what Merssive is and also your new product Solstice is and how people can find you or it.
Okay, yeah, Solstice is just it's software that allows you to collaborate in the conference room as though it's just pure software. You install it on any Windows PC, attach it to a display, and that display is now a shared pixel palette for decision making and collaboration with mobile devices or whatever you bring into that room. You can reach out to me on the website. Go to merssive.com. You can learn more about our products. I run a blog, the Visualist blog, just discussing all kinds of topics in the visual computing space or AV or whatever it might be. And you can see me on LinkedIn. So just email me or hook up there.
All right, Chris Jaynes, thank you, sir. And last but not least, George Tucker, the chief. I don't know what you are here, but you're the engineering coordinator for World Stage, and you do an awful lot here at AVNation. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And how can people find you and your writings as well?
Well, of course, I'm here on AVNation, various and sundry shows. Keep listening. We got AV Social, we got the Live Life, we've got DIY, we have a few other shows coming up. That's great. And you can find me with the EH Pub folks. I am on Commercial Integrator and Corporate Tech Decisions magazine.
Okay, just so you and Uncle Richie know, I'm going to be sending EH a bill for every time both are on. So, good night. I lost a bet real quickly, and I won't say anything more than this about the World Series. I lost a bet with my good friend Craig McCormick from EH Pubs. He writes for Commercial Integrator, and I had to change my Twitter icon to the Boston Red Sox. So good for them. They beat my Cardinals, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So, if you want to follow me, my name is Tim Albright on Twitter. TD Tim David Albright, ALBRIGHT. But as George said, please go by the website AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. They do an awful lot of work there. The guys who put that together, they've done a pretty good job. They're still kind of working some bugs out. So pardon our mess, pardon our dust. George mentioned the AV Social. We have a new one of those coming down the pike in the next 7 days or so. George just did a special on headphones, which was very interesting. Kind of took a look at the history of headphones with some audio folks. Actually, you had somebody on from Sennheiser, and who else did you have on?
Tom from AV Rants, Nathan Lively from Live Sound Design, and Robert Archer from Commercial Integrator.
Yeah, so it was a very good show. Yeah. So there's that coming down. We also do an education-focused show called EdTech, a control show that we have Uncle Richie on. I think every single one that you've been on. So
every single one.
So yeah, check out the website. You'll find this show as well as all of our monthlies. AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.